George Floyd. Apparently, at points in his past, he wasn't this upstanding individual like everybody likes to make him out to be. And I've said this at various times in various videos. It's interesting who people choose to martyr. My feeling is always that when we see cases like this in the past, that the dirtier the victim was, and obviously he's a victim, he didn't deserve what happened to him. But the dirtier the victim, the harder the mob fights on his behalf. It's interesting. So let's go ahead and read through this real quick. I just kind of skimmed it. I want to skim it some more and kind of get familiarized with it, but it raises an interesting question for me, and perhaps for all of you out there when you're thinking about this stuff. It's when we're gone, when we leave this earth, whatever means that happens, hopefully quietly in my sleep, but how will you be remembered? Most of us probably not at all, right? Most of us live pretty unremarkable lives, and that's a good thing. We just mind our business, go to work, support our loved ones and family, right? The Courier Daily. George Floyd, criminal past record of arrest, history, career timeline, robbery, baggie, gun, pregnant, and all details. All right, sounds juicy. Sounds like a Netflix special. Let's see what we got. George Floyd died tragically while being arrested by 4 Minneapolis, Minnesota police officers for passing a $20 counterfeit bill. Though George Floyd was murdered brutally, nobody is aware of George Floyd's criminal past record / arrest timeline for armed robbery, allegedly pointing a gun at a pregnant woman, and being involved in cocaine, white bag, baggie charges. The Union Chief of Minneapolis Police, MPD, released a statement on 1 June 2020, shedding light on late Jorge Floyd's violent criminal history. The Union Chief, Bob Kroll, wrote in a letter to his acquaintances and followers on Twitter, "What is not being told is the violent criminal history of George Floyd. The media will not air this." He also said that the ongoing protests are a result of a terrorist movement. Floyd shifted to Minneapolis, Minnesota from Houston, Texas in 2014 after having served 5 years in Harris County Jail for a first-degree felony. Floyd intended to start a peaceful life, but the decision to change ended up costing his life. I don't know what that is all about right there, what they're talking about, but it seems like that's always the rhetoric, right? When somebody dies, even if they had just been released from jail yesterday, and obviously I'm being a little cynical with that, but he intended to change his life today. He signed up for community college classes. He just reached out to his grandmother he hadn't spoken with in 5 years, and yada, yada, yada. He was looking for a job. All this stuff, it's kind of like, how many chances do people get, right? Obviously we get as many as we're afforded, but the narrative is always interesting how the media will portray certain individuals and just push the positive, right? And won't talk about the negative. And one comes to mind was the George Zimmerman case. What was that? 3, 4, 5 years ago? Maybe it was longer, but time seems to fly, right? But they would always post photos of the kid who died, and they would always put his young photos, that smiling photo. It had to be when he was like 13 or 14. Maybe he looked really young. They didn't put the photos up of him more currently where he's flashing gang signs, smoking weed, stuff like that. And then the George Zimmerman photo they always put up made him look evil, right? He always had that evil look on his face. It was like his mugshot photo or something like that. It was like, it disturbs me to no end. And that's why I avoid the media as much as possible. I know we have to watch it, but I don't know why they can't just be truthful with individuals. There's always an agenda, and it always gets individuals pitted against each other. It'd be so great if we could just live in a society where we'd get delivered the truth and then be allowed to decide for ourselves. I know it'll never happen, but let's read a little bit more here. Jorge lived an unfulfilling and sorrowful life. Jorge was arrested. Check out George Floyd's timeline. And let's have the criminal background check on him. Let's see if he had an investigation being a career criminal. In 2009, Jorge was arrested for a first-degree felony charge as per police criminal records, history past, of assault and armed robbery he took part in 2007 and spent 5 years in prison for breaking into a lady's house with the intent to rob her. Jorge agreed that he wore a blue uniform to look like a government employee to gain the lady's trust and eventually pave his way into the house. Irony, right? That blue uniform came back years later, right? The lady soon realized that the person was impersonating to be a government worker. She tried to shut the door, but Floyd brute forced his way into the house. Consequently, a Ford truck pulled up to the house's main entrance. 5 people exited the truck and went straight inside the lady's house. According to the Daily Mail UK, the court report mentions that the victim identified George, tallest of all the robbers, who pressed a pistol to her stomach and forced his way into the house. George Floyd's height was 6'6", and he still needed to push a gun into a pregnant woman's stomach. What a disgusting monster, right? Now, perhaps he changed. They said that George, his shift from Houston to Minneapolis was supposed to be his change, and that if he hadn't made the change, that he wouldn't have lost his life. Well, I guess you could also say, if you're on the other side of it, why didn't he get longer prison sentence than 5 years? If he was in prison, he'd still be alive. So if you're on that side of it, you can say that as well. But my God, why? How tall could the woman possibly have been to where you needed a gun? Pregnant woman isn't going to try to fight you. Perhaps. Put the gun away. Not finding any cash, Floyd and the other men took jewelry and the lady's cell phone and fled the scene using the truck. A neighbor had witnessed the robbery attempt, wrote down the number on the license plate, and reported the incident to 911 instantly. The police followed the lead and successfully tracked down the car. Floyd was found behind the wheel. Later, his identity was cross-verified with the woman who reported that a tall suspect had placed a gun to her abdomen and entered her house forcefully. Next question asks, did George Floyd have drugs in his system during autopsy? What is fentanyl? So fentanyl is a Schedule II drug here. We'll kind of skip that. It says Hennepin County medical examiners released a toxicology report on June 2nd, 2020, which stated that Jorge was indeed intoxicated with fentanyl, meth, and traces of cannabinoids and morphine. My God, at the time of his death, however, these were not termed the principal factors behind Floyd's death. Okay, so we heard the autopsy. I did a video on that several days back. But how many drugs does one guy need to get happy? I don't know what the effects are, how long these things sit in the system. Stayed away from that stuff all my life, never have done any of it. I know I'm a square, right? Fentanyl, meth, cannabinoids, morphine, my God. Woo, what a party. So we'll skip ahead a little bit more here. It says George Floyd baggie cocaine arrests. George was also linked to 2 convictions in the late 1990s for possession and theft of a controlled substance, cocaine. However, it's not clear whether or not Floyd served his time in prison for this felony. Interesting. George was accused of a firearm robbery in August 1998, so that was okay. So he did another one prior to the pregnant woman, for which he served 10 months at Harris County Jail. In April 2002, Floyd was condemned for 30 days of prison for trespassing private property. Oh boy. George Floyd was involved in 2 more cocaine offenses in October 2002 and 2004, for which he did 8 months and 10 months sentence in prison, respectively. Another cocaine possession conviction in December 2000. My fucking God, 2005. My word. How long is this guy's rap sheet? Floyd was arrested for having cocaine on him and served 10 months in state jail. God. After a few months, Floyd's charge was upgraded, amending the cocaine amount he possessed to be about 4 grams. However, according to the records, the alleged charge was lifted because Floyd convinced the jury that he had less than 1 gram of cocaine. Oh boy, George. At the time of his arrest, he allegedly dropped a white bag onto the sidewalk. The white bag is believed to have contained cocaine or some illegal drug, you can watch that video below. Oh God, all right, let's check it out real quick. This video doesn't have any audio. So you can see him sitting down there. Oh, there it is. Watch his hand there behind his back. Right there. Looked like somebody didn't learn their lesson after about 8 times. I mean, my goodness, how many convictions do you need? All right, we'll just wrap it up real quick. I think the verdict is in on whether or not the dude was a loser. Floyd's father of 2 last words were, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. Jacob, Minneapolis mayor, I guess they don't even give him his last name, but he's such a dork, right? You saw him. But amazingly enough, he's actually withstood the city council's calls for disbanding the police department. Surprisingly, I bet he'll give in soon enough. But he says here, had he been white, he'd be alive today and in great health. Doesn't mention the cocaine, though, and he would be... actually, no. Had he been white doing the same thing, he'd be in jail right now because of the cocaine, let's be honest. The details I've seen let me down that race was involved, the mayor added in his statement. I don't get that there, but according to their comment, though he was no saint, he didn't deserve to die like this. And obviously that's true, we all know that. He may have been a loser and a piece of garbage, and a total failure to his family and to his children, for sure. But I guess in his death, the family won't have to, on the bright side, go visit him in jail anymore, and he won't be a drain on their finances, right? That GoFundMe, you saw that. The thing was about 15 million, and that was several days ago that I looked. I mean, like I said, it's interesting how the media manipulates the story, how they won't tell us the full story. It's disappointing. So discouraging to have a media that tries to spin things in a way to create that divisiveness amongst individuals, and it worked. Congratulations. Looting, rioting, economic damage, deaths, injuries. Way to go, media. You did it. But they don't care. They'll never care as long as they get ratings. All right, everybody. Like we said, George obviously didn't deserve this. Those individuals involved will get their day in court. We'll see how that goes. But interesting, like always, who they choose to be a martyr. And as I said, the worse an individual is, that we always find out later on, the harder they push to try to control the narrative so that we don't get the actual facts. All right, take care, everybody. Thanks for watching.